Hello everyone, this is your boy Tapan John Emmanuel Malatedi, and we're back with a brand new episode on a different platform. This is Wick Guardians of Thought. As you guys, some of you guys might know, I am from Botswana and I moved here to Canada, Toronto, to come and further my studies in actuarial science. Being here has kind of led me to doing a lot of self discovery, but also sitting down and digesting some of the lessons that were passed on to me by some of my forebears. And I've made this platform to basically go through some of the truths that have been given unto us and to kind of try to get down to the essence of those truths and how these truths are applicable in the changing world that we are in. Truth remains truth, and I think that it is vital in a time where everyone kind of has an opinion to sit down and break down certain opinions, break down certain lessons, to actually try to look for the truth, to try to look for the beauty of the light that was given unto us by our forebears. So, welcome to this series. I hope that you guys will like the content we'll cover today, and I hope you guys will like, share, subscribe, and do all those crazy things. Hi, this is Tapan John Malatedi, Wick. Welcome to Wick Guardians of Thought. On today's episode, we're going to be dealing with something I'd like to call the period of waiting. Now, I think the period of waiting is something that most people do not talk about, but it is a period that is essential that every individual goes through when they have conceived an idea or a vision and they need to actually bring forth this vision into the current reality. Now, in the lives that we live, we know that high achievers are usually praised. We always have results and certain individuals being put on the spotlight because of a certain level of achievement or a certain level of skill that they have. Now, one thing that we do not usually talk about is the period of waiting. And the thing is that the period of waiting is kind of a weird period because we might call it the period of waiting, but the word waiting in itself in this context does not mean waiting, not doing anything, but rather waiting, doing certain things or having certain habits within that time, but not seeing the results of those habits to the extent that you would want to see them. So I think with regards to maybe football players or maybe basketball players, some of these people, their period of waiting is kind of described by them waking up early in the morning, going to the court or to the football pitch at times when the team has not actually come for practice yet, or maybe times that are outside of practice for them to kind of hone in on their craft, hone in on their skill. And the thing about this period is that it usually is a very challenging period because it needs a lot of faith in the conceived idea, a lot of faith in the conceived vision that one has as an individual, because it has challenges that need to be overcome. Now, the thing is that with regards to discipline and consistency, it is not easy for you as an individual to be able to be consistent if you do not have a strong reason why you need to be consistent. If you do not have this why that we often hear people talk about, it is very easy for you to give up when challenges arise because you do not own that energy that is needed for you to overcome. You need a certain level of hunger, a certain level of thirst And this certain level of hunger and thirst is usually given birth by you honing in on your vision, honing in on what you have visualized in your alone time as an individual. And this could be with regards to your education, this could be with regards to small goals in your life, or even the major goals in your life. Now, one thing that I've noticed is that, like I said, we usually look at the people who have achieved the things that we want, and we often do not take the advice that they give with regards to what needs to be done within the time of waiting, within the period of waiting. I think it is very important for us as individuals to kind of sit down and first of all have a clear vision of where we want to be, what we want to do, and where we want to see ourselves in the future. But then we also need to understand the reason behind our ambitions, the reason behind our goals, and why we are doing certain things. I've seen this lesson being very evident within the lives of people like David from the Bible. We meet him at one point where we see the prophet Samuel come over to his father's place and call over his sons. And we see David being anointed. We see the conception of this calling upon his life. But then after he is anointed and after Samuel lays hands on him, we see him going back to be a shepherd, and he kind of disappears for some time. And I kind of got this amazing understanding, this amazing revelation while I looked at this period of time of David, because it was in this time that some of the people around him were probably like, they probably met him maybe at the well or something and were like, isn't this the same guy who was anointed to be king? Why is he still here tending to his father's flock? But the thing is that if David did not believe in the vision that was given unto him, if David did not trust the process, trust his calling, and trust that he who called him to do it would give him strength and teach him what he needed to learn within the waiting period, then it would have been easy for someone like David to give up on his calling. And I believe that he didn't. Rather, I believe that in his time of calling, he learned a lot. He learned a lot with regards to being a shepherd, and the learning that was kind of brought forth in the situation that he was in kind of applied towards the future, applied towards his calling as a king. And often I think that as individuals we find ourselves in this period of waiting where sometimes you don't have the results that you wanted. Sometimes you don't see anything that could possibly make you believe that you're on the right path, or make you believe that you're moving further and further closer to that time where you're able to see your vision come to pass. But I think it is very important for us to take lessons from the lives of the people around us, from the lives of our forebears, from the lives of people like Abraham, because it was Abraham who had one of the craziest time of waiting, one of the craziest periods of waiting, because we see him at that moment of conception where God gave him this vision and this amazing promise with regards to him being the father of many nations and many people. And yet we see him in this period of waiting, having to face certain challenges that seem to oppose that vision, or seem to kind of oppose the realization of that vision. And I think that we can learn something from him, because one thing that he had is that he had patience. One, he had a strong conviction in his why. That was the second thing. And the third thing, I think, is that his perspective was not changed by the circumstances around him. He chose to walk by different senses rather than the senses that would have kind of led to him believing what was happening in the current moment, rather than believing what would happen in the future. And I think this is where the Bible kind of talks about walking by faith and not by sight. And the thing is that with regards to our convictions, with regards to some of the things that God puts on our hearts, He puts them there so that we may be able to look towards those things and not towards the things that are happening around us. It is often the case that I've kind of said this, I've kind of noticed this, that when God kind of reaches out in a very, very explicit way, usually something that opposes or that is contrary to what he told you happens after. Like if he reaches out and says, Tsapang, I love you, and I'm going to do this and this in your life, I'm going to hold you, I care for you, I know that usually after that there's probably something coming real soon that is going to try to make me believe otherwise. And he gives us these words. Sometimes it's his written word, sometimes it's his word that he speaks through our intuition. And this word is there to give us faith, because faith comes by hearing. And the thing is that if we choose to hear, if we choose to listen to the words that encourage us to rise above our situations, to rise above the current challenges in order to get where we need to get, we are able to move differently. We are able to move with vision. We are able to move with certainty despite what is happening in our lives. And I think this is an amazing lesson that we see in the lives of the patriarchs. We see in the lives of people like David. We see in the lives of many other people. I think it is very important, even when looking at the lives of some of the very successful people in our current days. When we look at entrepreneurs, when we look at internet personalities, there are certain people who had that periods of waiting where some of them kind of had to read a ton amount of books. They had to kind of work on themselves, work on their character, work on learning the things that they feel like they lacked, and they felt that these things were kind of acting as barriers to them being what they wanted to be at that time. So I think it is very important for us to kind of know the different seasons in our lives, the different seasons with respect to different goals, but also know how to react within those seasons. Because if you know that you're in a season of waiting, if you know that you're pregnant, it's going to be easy for you to act right. It's going to be easy for you to carry out the proper prenatal care, for you to make sure that you are able to bring forth your vision. You're able to deliver at the rightful time. Like I said, I think when the Bible says that my people perish because of the lack of knowledge, we perish in different ways because of lacking knowledge in different ways. If you do not know what season you're in, with regards to certain things in your life, you're not going to know how to react properly to those seasons. And that's where you kind of terminate your vision, you terminate what has been spoken upon your life, you terminate the certain things that you were so close to bringing forth. And usually, I think one way we terminate all the things that God has put in us and all the things that we have planned is by taking on the opinions, thoughts, and beliefs of other people. People who are not there when you had the initial intimacy with your vision, the initial intimacy with the revelation that God had given you. And it's kind of a weird concept also that I just can't get my mind around, but I fall victim to it sometimes. I find myself at times taking in the voices of people who truly do not know the realest version of me, who do not know my capability, who do not know my full ability, who do not know what God has put in me. And it's quite weird that we take the opinions of these people and allow them to bring us down, where in actual fact we are supposed to believe, to be crazy with regards to our faith in who we are. And I think one thing is that believing in yourself should be to an extent where you don't believe in yourself because of the confidence you have in your ability, but rather you believe in yourself because of the confidence you have in God's ability, in Him choosing you despite your weaknesses, in Him saying that you are what I made you to be, despite where you are right now, despite who you think you are right now, despite your shortcomings. And I think despite anything that might be a weakness in our lives, He says that my grace is sufficient in your weaknesses. And this is something that we often forget, but it is something that I feel like we need to hone in on and kind of work on, because if we are not able to have the right mindset with regards to our period of waiting, we are not going to be able to do the things that we need to do when we're supposed to be waiting. We are not going to be able to walk the steps of faith that we're supposed to take in that period of waiting. So if there's something that I would like you to take from this episode, I would say that waiting is not just waiting, but waiting is an active process of learning, of growing, of being sensitive to the things that you're doing, being sensitive to the things that you're learning, being sensitive of the environment you're in, being sensitive even in the times where you're doing things that you might not think are adding to your vision. Like most people say that, like, I usually hear people say that school is useless in nowadays. I think I have a different perspective, because I've learned that certain things within school have been very useful with regards to changing the way I think and changing the way I approach things. And because I am sensitive towards my vision, I am able to appreciate the small things in the smallest places, even with regards to my education. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing logical statements right now, I'm doing statistics, I'm doing this and that, but how is this actually pushing forward my true calling? And often, because of the sensitivity, I found out that I'm able to understand certain concepts and apply them to various aspects of my life. And because of this awareness, because of having my eyes constantly looking and seeing how everything aligns with regard to getting me where I need to be in my time of waiting, I feel a certain level of appreciation of the things that are around me, and I'm also able to hone in and work harder on the things that I know I have to do, and it makes it a bit easier because I can see them working for my good, indirectly or directly. So I feel like it is very important for us to kind of, like I said, know the seasons that we're in, but also have a different perspective towards actually approaching them. This is all that I had planned for today's episode. When I post it, it's probably going to have all these crazy visuals and stuff. I do not record myself. I do not record video, but I hope that you guys really enjoyed this episode. From your boy, Taban John Emmanuel Malatedi, I hope that you guys take care. I hope that God continues revealing himself to you. Take care. Ciao.